going to now hand over to John Mitchell. So John Mitchell is ALNAP's longtime director. He was our longtime director. He's now working as a special advisor to ALNAP. I'll let John tell you how many years he was with ALNAP. I don't actually remember. He's also written previously on RTEs. He's been a huge promoter in the humanitarian sector and a thought leader of learning and improving performance. So now, John, over to you for some closing remarks and reflection. John, the floor is yours.
Susanna, thank you very much. I don't even think I can remember how many years I've been at ALNAP, so I won't answer that question. But I will make some closing remarks. Before I do so, I just wanted to say how genuinely fascinating it's been to hear about all these new methods, approaches, and experiences for real-time learning. I found it to be a really thoroughly absorbing event. So I want to leave you with two main thoughts, I think. And the first is to explicitly recognize that the demands for learning brought about by the COVID pandemic have clearly created a renewal for real-time evaluations and real-time learning. And we've heard from so many speakers about how evaluation officers have had to change and adapt their usual practices. We heard from Margie earlier, very interesting, all the success factors that need to be in place, adapting the approach to fit the needs of the organization, how to manage these new processes using phased approaches and layering approaches and so on and so forth. We heard about the importance of creating a learning space, and Margie mentioned how useful the appreciative inquiry method can be here. The importance of investing in interpersonal skills and emphasizing the importance of listening, building learning into the process, and ensuring safety and ethical engagement. All of that is really interesting. Heard from Jamo from World Vision about how these processes can be extractive and how to try and make the processes valuable for not only the country offices, but the regions and the global offices as well. That's quite a difficult thing to do, but some very interesting observations about how to make this more manageable with the opt-in country approach and so on and so forth. World Vision are so great at doing global things, aren't they? 2,600 staff involved in the online survey. That's pretty good. And I just have to pass on this, Jamo. I hadn't seen your strapline before. Hope, joy, and justice for World Vision. I thought that was very nice. Greg from Norwegian Refugee Council told us about the need for the learning response review, and some really interesting points I picked up there: the importance of having institutional backing at the highest level and getting a grip on the unknowns, and the adaptive management analytical framework that was up on the screen there. I'm not sure I took it all in, but it looked really interesting. And finally, Ricardo, explaining what has driven UNICEF's renewed focus for learning, and this incredible, thing about leadership, leaders being open to learning on the go, and a customized approach, 41 countries in 7 regions, and adapting so many of these different approaches to different regions, and triggered what he called a live learning approach, which I found very fascinating. And finally, last but not least, Carlos, very, very interesting FAO stock-taking exercise, and described all the good things that came out of that exercise, including the importance of early results and what was different about real-time evaluations. So there's a wealth of knowledge there. And I think, I said earlier that it's created a renewal for real-time evaluations, but I think it actually represents more than a renewal. We're seeing a kind of renaissance now, as what is happening is not only revived the original intentions of real-time evaluations, it's also surpassed some of the usual thinking and ways of doing things. And many of you will know, Ricardo alluded to it, RTEs have been around for a long time. They came out of the evaluation boom in the late 1990s and 2000s, when more and more agencies increased their capacity to conduct independent evaluations. But there was also a desire to kind of evaluate the evaluations to check that resources were being used wisely. And the concern at the time was that evaluations didn't become too self-referential and disconnected from the people directly affected by crisis. And I can see that, and we heard this from Margie very, very clearly, these concerns are still around today, but we've certainly seemed to have acted on them. I'm very pleased that Ricardo mentioned Jeff Crisp and UNHCR earlier, as they were the agency that initially drove or championed real-time evaluations, and that helped create the boom. And as Susanna said earlier, ALNAP published its RTE guide in 2009, which has been a popular product down the years. But my observation has always been that although RTEs have been popular, I've also heard criticisms about inconsistent methodologies and weak theoretical underpinnings. Some of those were addressed. Carlos mentioned a few of those. And there have been definitely some periods where real-time evaluations went out of fashion. And obviously, rigor and standardization are not unimportant, but I think that what we have understood today is that there is no one-size-fits-all approach. And in complex situations like the ones brought about by the pandemic, a wider selection of tools to apply in different real-life situations will help us become more effective and more relevant. And as Margie said, I do hope these experiences will make us think more about what it is we're trying to achieve, and that the end game is not always just about the final report, but as much, if not more, about the positive spin-offs that are created during the process itself. Very quickly, my second thought to leave you with is about this learning exchange itself. I just don't think we can underestimate how important it is to create forums like this one, where we can have a structured conversation around learning and experience across agencies. And it's clear from the number of people who registered for this event. I wrote down 229 people at the beginning of this, from Bhutan, Pakistan, Libya, Jordan, Bangladesh, Colombia, Bolivia, Senegal. Congratulations to Senegal, by the way, for winning the football, and many other countries as well. And I think that exchanges like this can help create positive energy and help promote innovations. And I'm sure Susanna and Andrew UNEG, very happy to share experiences from the humanitarian sector with a broader audience. And I hope we continue to create these kind of exchanges as we move forward.